Motion to open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. We only have one order of business, but before we start, there's a couple things that I do want to mention. First is that we have a new sound system in here, so it picks up everything in the back. So you think you're quietly whispering, it's going to be picked up and it's going to be heard out. So be mindful of that. Secondly, recently we've lost a member of our planning board. This is our first meeting since his passing, George Morse. I would just like to take a moment of silence and recognize the fact that George has passed away, and he has given significantly to the town of Newbury as he was a member of the planning board. Thank you. And lastly, I just want to remind that this meeting is the board is meeting with each other. They're not meeting with the public. So we're going to be interviewing. It's done in public, but we won't be engaging with the audience and asking those types of questions. So we meet with us together, and we will, you'll be witness to all the discussions that we have here. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to John Parrow of John Parrow Consulting and Associates. Mr. Parrow is here.
Thank you very much. So I think we'll start out, I'll just bring you up to speed on how we got to this point in the process, narrowing it down to two candidates. Working with Community Paradigm, put out advertisements for prospective candidates, reviewed the resumes, and narrowed that down. And then the town administrator and Bernie Lynch had interviews with those candidates. I think there were maybe 6 or 7.
4.
4.
One didn't show. Yeah.
With 4. And they were able to narrow that down to the 3 candidates we sent to the assessment center. So they've been narrowed down not only by the resume review, but also by an initial interview. And then we sent them to the assessment center. Now the assessment center, I think you have my report from the assessment center. The assessment center is based on real life issues that a fire chief would go through each day. So we had 4 exercises. One was the in-basket. The in-basket is, you walk in your office Monday morning, flip on the computer, you have emails, you have phone calls, you have letters that are coming in that you have to answer. So that's how they start out their morning in the assessment center. Now while they're working on their laptops, answering the letters, emails, and phone calls, we pull them out for different exercises. So it would be like you were sitting at your desk, you had a meeting at town hall, and you had to go up to town hall. And so we introduce those other exercises, and then they go to that exercise, and they individually, and then go back to the in-basket exercise and start working again. So we had 3 other exercises. One was a community meeting. So we're talking with the interim chief and the town administrator. We got a little bit of a feel for the community, some of the issues that we're facing here in Newbury, and the different political factions that may exist in Newbury. Not a small town, but we all have political factions. And we have the candidate come in, acting as a chief, and they introduce themselves. They explain a little bit about the Newbury Fire Department, what they do, so we can make sure that they've at least researched the department. And then the assessors act as community activists and ask them those questions. And they're all different types of questions. They can be off the wall, they can be confrontational, and we look and see how the candidate answers those questions, whether they answer them correctly, how they were able to control themselves in the meeting, how they looked at people when they spoke to them, how they conducted themselves. Did they use a lot of acronyms, fire department acronyms that no one understands? And so we grade them probably in that exercise. I think it's on about 15 different points. And there's 3 assessors plus myself. And the assessors have to agree on what the score is for each point. And then, so it's consensus scoring, so it keeps everything fair, you know, in case anybody happens to know someone a little bit or heard about somebody, it keeps everything fair. So the community meeting was the second exercise that we pulled them out of the in-basket for. The third one was a group exercise. So in this case, we had all 3 candidates sit at a table and have to discuss an issue. The issue was on recruit and retention. It's very difficult. I don't care if you have an all-career department or you have a combination department. It's getting very difficult, not only in the fire service, but with our brothers over in the police service. It's getting very difficult to keep candidates and to recruit them, and to keep them once you get them. They're jumping to other departments once they get trained. Sometimes a smaller department ends up being a training ground, and we lose them. So they had 20 minutes to prepare, and then they sat for 40 minutes and discussed the issue. And they had a list of bullets that they had to answer, and then give us a written report at the end of the meeting. And then the final exercise was an employee issue exercise. In this case, we had one of the firefighters was harassing one of the female firefighters, but also using social media to disparage the officers in the department. And so we see how that person deals with that type of conflict, and you know how they can handle discipline, or maybe do some coaching, or you know make sure they're going to check back. And again, the score sheet has 15 points that we're looking for, different things that we look for that we would expect, you know, if they sat in front of an HR director, that would be addressed. So those were the 4 exercises. They're each scored separately. They're all weighted the same, so each one's worth 25%, and then we come up with a total score at the end. And total score at the end is, you know, it's kind of all relative. You know, if someone gets an 80, it doesn't mean that they have, you know, a B-, C+. It's just a relative rating against another candidate. So typically what we look for in the scoring is we look for breaks. So if we look at the first candidate with an 84, the second one with an 81, there's only a 3-point difference there. But then we had a break with the last candidate that kind of fell off there, and that's where we broke it, and that's why we ended up with 2 candidates. So we can get into a little bit of the outcome of this afterwards. I think we should, before we I don't know, dirty our minds or whatever. We can get through the interview questions, and I have prepared interview questions. I have 12 questions to get through. The easiest way to do it is for me to ask the questions uninterrupted and keep the candidates on time so we don't run out of time. And then at the end, I'll open it up to any questions that the board may have. And then if we still have time left, we can open it up for any questions the candidates have, if that's all right, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay. So if we can, I can bring the I can go and get them.
May I ask a question
Yes,
of Jack? How many total, I know that you have 3 people here that you went through. How many total candidates did you apply for this job?
I think 9.
Yeah, I think 9 or 10.
They were 9 or 10 candidates applied?
The pool, not that the pool isn't good, the pool isn't large.
I understand, and just a follow-up if I may, and that is the 3 that were chosen to go through the process.
Correct.
How were those graded? Was it just based on the interview process that you guys did?
Well, we reviewed the resumes first,
Correct.
and then after the resumes, there was an interview process. And then after the interview process, they chose to move those three forward.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay,
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate the
he's on the hot seat. So we have our first candidate. I don't want to mess up your name, Mike, but Mike Gagne.
Gonyer. Yeah.
Mike, I'm going to be asking the questions, but please answer them, to the board. But I have a series of questions to ask you over the next 45 minutes. We want you to answer them completely but succinctly. So if you can answer them in a few sentences, that's fine, but we want you to answer them completely also. But you just don't want people to drag on. So just answer them succinctly but completely. At the end, there may be, after I finish, there may be a few follow-up questions from the board, and then if time allows, we may open it up that if you have any questions that we could answer.
Sure.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
So let's start out the process by you telling us a little bit about yourself and why the town of Newbury and the Newbury Fire Department is a good professional fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, appreciate your time and consideration. My name is Michael Gonyer, entering my 24th year as in fire service. Newbury was appealing to me because it reminded me a lot of the town that I started in and grew up in, was the town of Douglas minus the ocean. It was a rural town that had a lot of pride, very similar community demographics, and started with the call department there and understood, why call departments are the backbone of not only this community, but many of the communities like it, and quite frankly across the state of Massachusetts. We are in debt a lot to the call firefighter across this state and the country. And being familiar with not only how small town, rural town works, but also the department makeup was very similar. The demographics of the department, the pros and cons of the department, the challenges that are kind of laid forward coming into the future are all commonly shared with experiences that I've had not only in my tenure as a call firefighter, but also developing up through the ranks into my current position and current state. I'm a self-starter, motivated. I'm your hardest working candidate. I'm sure all the other candidates have been very well qualified. There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to get the very best out of me every day throughout the duration of my career, which is going to be a career of longevity. Also, it was taught to me from a very young age when I started is that you have to take every opportunity that's given to you, and if you don't have those opportunities, you have to make your own. And that's something that I think my resume shows as far as the opportunities that I've also earned, made, and have been given, I've taken full advantage of. And that's something that was taught to me from a very young age, and that's something that I strive to impose upon the next generation of firefighters coming up, because we need them more than we think that we do.
Okay, thank you. In your view, is there a difference between management and leadership?
Of course there is. Management is more of the finance, budget, day-to-day operations type of thing to keep the department going from a business and fiscal aspect of things. But leadership, it has to be looked at completely differently, where leadership is empowering people, it's establishing trust with your staff, it's enabling them to do tasks independently, giving them the opportunities, listening to the community, listening to the needs of the community and the people who we serve. And it's all those things, it's just a number of things that you can put together to incorporate leadership, but they are two completely different things.
What would you say your leadership style is?
Well, textbook-wise, it's servant style, which I think is shared by pretty much everybody who gets into public safety, that we have the need and the desire to serve others. And as you climb up the ladder and you promote through the fire service and any organization really, it becomes less and less about you and more about everybody else. And so not only do I serve the community, but I serve all the men and women within the department more so. It's my job to facilitate whatever they need and whatever the community needs to meet the demands and the wishes of that community. I've spent my career empowering people, and that's something that also goes along with servant-style leadership, is giving them the ability, whether it be college students, junior firefighters, junior officers. You have to be able to give them the ability to operate and thrive and develop so they can be the next person out.
Okay. If you had to list one thing you stand for as a leader, what would that be?
You have to establish trust. You have to. You have to be able to trust your people and you have the team, and you have to be able to. They have to be able to trust you. Your community has to be able to trust you. But more importantly, those internal stakeholders inside the organization, they have to trust you, and that has to be reciprocated. There is no positive relationship that exists anywhere in this world that doesn't have a foundation of trust.
Okay. Could you please describe your experience with an EMS system, both operational and administratively?
Yeah, so again, with each individual department that I've been involved with, I've kind of dove feet first into many of the projects, a lot of them having to do with EMS. So again, it starts back into the town of Douglas, where we developed from an on-call BLS service into a full-time service, and then eventually into a paramedic service. Now I was more involved with the transition from the BLS to the ALS side. And then with the town of Auburn, full-time was a process that the town did not own their own ambulance, and it was about a 5-year plan to get that into ownership, to establish at that time, an intermediate level EMT service, and then eventually grew it into an ALS service with, at this point, it's 3 ambulances, and it's a very busy system down there. And then lastly, more recently, was the town of Southbridge, where I served as EMS coordinator for more of a kind of like urban type feel EMS service, which was extremely busy, had a lot of challenges, and had a community hospital that we had to establish relationships with because we did interfacility transfers out of there as well, emergent and non-emergent. It was an ALS service that took care of a town for about 25,000 people or so, which most of the town was under the poverty line, low median household income, and so we had to navigate around the lack of ambulance receipts as well, because our billing was reflective of the demographics within the community. So that was a challenge as well. As well as all the training and everything, and procurement and things of that nature that goes along with running a service. I was involved in all of that.
Okay. So in today's environment, it's very difficult to hire and retain firefighter paramedics. How would you address this?
Well, it's a multifaceted approach. I don't think you can just go ahead and put a job advertisement out there and go through the process and just, do the run-of-the-mill type of things. I think there's a little bit of outside-of-the-box thinking. I think there's a big emphasis that we've been missing as the fire service, generally speaking, not just here, but I'm saying from a general standpoint, is that we need to do a better job of understanding the wants and needs of our people, of our employees, not only on the full-time side, but also part-time and call side. Because if we understand the needs and their desires, we understand maybe some strategies of how we can retain them. And in other words, we can also probably get some clues on to how to recruit more effectively. I think there's a lot of merit to looking outside of the fire service from the recruitment aspect. I think the private sector does a pretty good job at recruitment. They have to. Their businesses rely on it. So I think tapping into some of the strategies that the private sector uses would be beneficial. I also think that we have to be able to identify the demographics of the people who we need, their skill sets, commonalities between them, and then to get new people in the door, and then obviously nurture those relationships. Much of it is based on what I said before, is trust, and to be able to establish those relationships and continually check up on people to make sure that, like, you still matter to us, you're still an integral part of the team, you still have a role here, and if you're unclear on that, let's work on establishing what role maybe you would be interested in, what things you're interested in, how can we plug you into the system, plug you into the team that benefits you and benefits the organization as a whole.
In light of this difficulty, a small town like Newbury, it's a big lift to run an ALS system.
It is.
Do you think that a town the size of Newbury should be running an ALS system, or is there a better model out there?
I do think it's very doable. I also am not turned off to the fact that the concept of shared resources, and that other towns around us, we are not an anomaly here in Newbury. The towns around us are feeling the same pinch as us. I think it's time that we come together, seriously come together. We can kick the can down the road. And what I'm saying is not from the fire service aspect, not from the town of Newbury's side of things, is that we need to come together in a serious conversation and say, how can we benefit each other, department to department, to share our resources, to brainstorm, and to maybe lighten the load, if you will, of the EMS side of things, the fire side of things, the training side of things, and how can we kind of incorporate all of our finances, staff, resources, equipment, all of it kind of comes together to say that maybe it's more power in numbers, that we can be a little bit more effective and deliver a better product to the town.
So we've talked quite a bit about EMS. What other issues are combination departments facing, in general across the Commonwealth?
Well, it's the recruitment and retention is obviously number one. That's the hot button topic. The other portion of it is, I think that the combination departments, we need to be able to show the communities the product that we can deliver on more of a regular basis. We can't be able to establish the relationships with the taxpayers and the citizens just of the 12 or 1,300 calls that we do. We don't want people to be relying on the relationship because they have to pick up and call 911. So getting out to community programs, community risk reduction programs, community paramedicine, I think is something that is in the wheelhouse of small combination departments like ours, because we can explore the added revenue that they potentially can bring to the community, but also, tapping into some of the demographics, the elderly populations, the more at-risk populations, people who are on fixed incomes, and be able to show them a benefit of our service that we can provide all the time, on top of fire prevention, community education through SAFE and Senior SAFE, through the school departments and things of that nature. Those have all been long-standing programs. And I think lastly, the ability to overcome the financial constraints, right? We do have to play within, there's only so many pieces of the pie, and we have to play within that, and that can be challenging. However, you can be able to look at a budget and be able to say, where can we extract every ounce of juice out of this budget that we're going to be able to get, again, the best product that we can put forward, that our people are trained, they are safe, they are well equipped. Those are all the things that I think that are probably facing not only the town of Newbury, but everybody across the board.
If I was to call the chief in Middleton, what type of employee would he say you were?
I would say that all of those things I kind of talked about, self-motivated, self-starting, someone who is, if there's a project coming forward, again, I'm the first hand up, you know. If there's an opportunity for not only growth of the department, but personal growth, take advantage of that.
And what would your peers or staff say about you?
I would hope the same. One thing that I take a lot of great pride in is that, you know, rank aside, leadership is very important to me. So when young firefighters and my peers come to me and confide in me, not only for professional reasons but personal reasons, I take a lot of, I take it seriously, and I take a lot of pride into that, to say that obviously I've done something right to be able to have that person trust me. And it takes a lot for someone to come forward, especially with personal reasons, and talk about them. And that's something that I've always wanted to establish right from the get-go with every organization I've ever been involved with, developing those things and making sure that people understand that I can be that person to come to at all times. And I think that's even more imperative, again, as you work your way up, especially as the fire chief. You need to be approachable. You need to not be locked in the office. You need to be boots on the ground with your men and women, and be able to not only, you know, do the calls and do the training, but have that personal relationship to go along with it. I think it's invaluable.
When you were promoted to your last or current position, what was the one biggest challenge you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think it's the added role of, or that added sense of responsibility to, you're overseeing now not just you, but your group or your department or your shift. Again, the level of responsibility grows and grows and grows as it becomes less and less about you. And it is a very humbling type of feeling to know that everybody's safety lies on your shoulders. And that's something that nobody should take lightly, but especially someone who's in the role of fire chief. And that goes for not only my team, but also the community. We don't want tragedy any more than anyone else does. And if, quite frankly, at the end of the year, we did 0 calls, that's a win. But we know that doesn't happen. But the aspect of keeping your folks safe, and that's just a bit, that's a big weight, a big pressure that goes along with the position.
Okay. Share a professional experience you had with a difficult employee that you supervised, how you handled it, and what was the outcome for the employee and the department.
Yeah, so there's two scenarios that kind of come to mind, situations that I ran into, if I could kind of explain both of them quickly.
Yeah, just keep it tight.
Yeah. One was a success, and one I kind of chalk up as a failure. We had one, as a lieutenant, I had my driver, who was a top-notch, very active firefighter, very reliable, and all of a sudden their performance started to drop off, and they started not coming around, and it was noticeable, and his behavior became erratic, and went through the coaching process, pulled him aside personally, and then had other members of the department who I knew were close to him, again, based on the personal relationships, approach him from the personal side, from the coaching side, and then his behavior wasn't corrective, so then we had to go through the progressive discipline, and then ultimately, the reason I say it was a failure is because the firefighter had to be terminated. It was found that he was stealing gas from the town pumps, and putting it in his personal car, like at 3 o'clock in the morning. He would steal the keys, go down, fill his car. Reason is that he ended up having a drug problem. So it was unfortunate that he ended up having to be terminated. We tried so hard to get him on the straight and narrow, and I chalked it up personally as a failure. The other one was, we had another firefighter, female firefighter, who was a rock star, who really performed well. It just seemed like something was holding her back. It just seemed like she was like not reaching her full potential. And so talking to her, what it came out is that she was very worried about admitting that to the department members that she was gay and how that would be received. And again, it went back to the personal relationships and the confiding of sensitive issues like that, to say that, listen, we all support everybody here. All we need you to be is a good employee, and the rest will all fall in place. And if you try and you show the effort, everyone is going to, support you in whatever your endeavors are and your lifestyles and your life in general. She finally was able to be open about things, and she flourished. She flourished as an employee, and she just hit the accelerator and really reached her full potential. Ended up getting picked up by another department full-time, started her full-time firefighter career, went to paramedic school, and really is a great success story. But I think about if we didn't do that, if we didn't have that sensitive conversation, would have she maybe left, not feeling comfortable.
Okay. As the fire chief, you're going to have to implement some things that the firefighters are opposed to. How would you work to get the firefighters on board with this? Well,
it's communication up and down the ladder. I think that needs to be a lot of transparency so everyone understands the constraints that the department has to work under as applied from the town. The fact that we have to work with all the other departments and department heads to be able to create the good financial picture that Newbury is currently in. And then operationally things, again, to show the potential benefits. And I will be the first one to admit that I am wrong when I am. And I think that goes a long way too with, again, establishing relationships and being vulnerable for folks. To say that, hey, I messed this one up, that was a better idea, or I'm open to any ideas because I don't have all the answers. And that all goes along with communication. And there's a lot more that I have to learn in this position. And I'm not going to come in saying that I know it all, and I need the men and women of the fire department more than they need me. And that's going to be clear from day one.
So you're at a house fire, and say food on the stove. Firefighters are in the other rooms opening the windows to vent out the house. You see one of the firefighters take a gold watch off a nightstand and stick it in their pocket. What do you do?
Well, pull that firefighter aside, and then probably the company officer as well, to have some sort of accountability along with it and confront them immediately of the situation. From that point on, they have to obviously return the item immediately, and there's going to be repercussions because of that. That person, personally, I would bring that person back to the station. There would be a process of questions and answers as to why such irrational and inappropriate behavior would even come across your mind. It would be communicated that behavior is not going to be tolerated. Again, that doesn't seem like appropriate behavior for anybody in their right mind. So again, is there some sort of underlying issue that potentially led them to make that poor decision? It doesn't make them or preclude them or make them immune from any disciplinary process because it's a serious infraction, it's theft. But also, is there another layer to the onion that we have to peel back to say that, okay, is there something else going on that would make you, make such a poor judgment? And obviously, if there was any resistance to that, we can only go so far as helping that person, and everything is on the table up to and including termination at that point.
When would you involve the police department at all?
I would give the opportunity for them to come clean and make the police department aware, and then obviously make that person who owned that piece of property aware. Give them the utmost apologies that we can that would even try to rectify that type of situation. Again, it's untrustworthy and it paints the department in a terrible picture, being that we have to be trusted by the community. So That has to be done clearly, upfront, immediately. And if that person was resistant to the opportunities that we're giving them to admit to their mistakes, then yeah, it's theft, and they would have to have charges pressed against them, certainly.
As a leader, how do you make sure everyone in the organization knows what's expected of them?
Well, there's formal and informal ways of communicating that. One of the things that I'm big on is job performance requirements, and to be able to put out job descriptions and annual, so job descriptions for each level of the department, right, from call firefighter, junior firefighter, all the way up to senior firefighter, officers, all the way up the chain, including myself. And that gives formal expectations as to, if you want to grow within the department, what you have to obtain, the goals that we're going to set for you, and also enables you to grow as a person. The other part of it is annual reviews, to sit down with people and give them feedback as to what you're doing well, and again, ways that you can potentially improve. And again, that's done all the way up. And I would invite people to give me feedback, to say, what do you need from me? What am I doing well, in your opinion? And where can I improve? Because, again, I do not have all the answers, and I'm not Teflon. I have a greater responsibility than everybody that goes in and out of those doors. And then lastly is the informal sessions, right? Those private conversations, those talks around the bumper, those talks around the coffee table, those discussions after training when everybody should have gone home an hour ago and everyone's still, hanging around and having a good conversation. Like, those are where the relationships, I think, are most effectively built, especially within the fire service. And things like that can come out, as far as, where do we see ourselves going and how can we get there?
Okay. What is your level of involvement in budget creation and budget management?
Again, one of those things that when projects arose, I was one of the first ones to put my hand in, because I knew that, again, as you moved up the ladder, the aspect of finances would be very important as you progressed up, and you really needed a full understanding on how it worked. Both from just inside the department and also throughout the community as well. So initially, when I was running training in Auburn, I had a small budget that the chief, again, independence, empowering, here's your budget, stay within it, the ground rules, have at it, and make the most out of it. And we had a pretty good success with not only running training for our new employees, but also our monthly trainings and day-to-day trainings for our existing employees. And then, again, through the EMS coordinator position in Southbridge, was responsible for the procurement of the equipment, maintenance schedules, and the budget that went along with running a 3-truck ALS ambulance service that also did, interfacility transfers with the hospital and outlying hospitals. So the demands as far as balancing that budget was a little bit more stringent. One thing that was a little bit tough to kind of overcome initially was those ambulance receipts, unlike here where they go into the enterprise fund, went into the general fund. So we never really saw that money back, which was sometimes difficult to be able to paint the picture to both the internal and external folks inside and outside of the department. And then at Quincy, as the program coordinator, had ultimate responsibility for the fire science budget there. That had a lot to do with student enrollment was the big variable there, because that was going to depend on how many classes we ran, who taught it, what their pay was going to be based on the collective bargaining agreement for all the instructors, how many classes we were going to run that semester, whether or not we would drop a class. There was a lot that went into it, so we had the staff budget, the equipment budget for that, which was all kind of handed to us by the Department of Education. We had to play within their constraints as well, because that's where we got our funding to be in the state school. But it provided me a lot of insight, especially not only from the municipal side of things, but also at Quinn Sig, even though it was a state school, having a lot of interaction with private entities through grants and funding and donations and things of that nature. So it was interesting and obviously a big learning experience.
Do you have any experience in writing and obtaining grants?
Yeah, so I did some small stuff back when it seemed like the private sector was a little bit more, this was like right after 9/11, so everybody wanted to give us money. And so the private sector was really willing to open up their pocketbooks, so we did a lot of small stuff when I was in Auburn. Again, mostly involving training and equipment, things of that nature. We looked for a lot of donations, and obviously we were looked upon in a good light at that particular time, albeit from a tragedy. And then gradually that dried up, and then recently the grant stuff that I've done was through committee work, because it can be a lot of hours, it's daunting, and it's tough for just one person to be able to stare at the same application narratives, processes all the time. So at the time it was our deputy fire chief who headed the committee, and then there was 3 of us that contributed to the committee, created all the information, gathered all the information. We did a poor, at the time, very poor job of data collection, which we learned from, which is a great learning experience. We improved upon it. We still weren't successful with the SAFER grant, but the AFG grant we were. And then we also got a private grant that we obtained a off-road utility vehicle for community events, and you could use it for off-road stuff, urban interface, wildland stuff. So I was kind of involved in all those things.
Just to be clear for the board, a SAFER grant is a federal grant to hire employees, and an AFG grant is the federal grant to buy equipment. You buy fire engines or breathing apparatus and whatever, just so you're clear on that. Describe your experience in managing fire equipment and facilities.
So, equipment, I've held positions, again, from everything from small stuff into big stuff. One of the earliest things that I took on was just being responsible for the self-contained breathing apparatus that we had in the department that I was with at the time, which, was about 60 pieces of equipment. Again, had a small budget as far as repairs. Was sent off at the time. We were able to work on them ourselves and became a technician and did all those things. And that was really the start of trying to be involved with the maintenance and upkeep of the equipment. And then later, as training officer in Auburn, we were lucky enough that the fire district had their own training facility, and it was in Auburn. And the responsibility of that fell on the training officer of the department, which at the time was me. So the facility served 35 communities that could use it at any particular time. It was there for live fires, and we had a number of other props that would benefit, from propane type fires, flammable gas, flammable liquids. We did a lot of stuff with auto extrication, car accident training, things of that nature. And that was probably the biggest thing as far as the facility goes that I've been responsible for during my tenure there. And we had our own funding, and some of it was supplemented by the fire district, where each department would kick in a flat rate for the upkeep and maintenance and things of that nature. But it was, again, another good learning experience that I had in my career.
And describe your level of experience in collective bargaining and labor relations.
Yeah, so again, another opportunity that I made early on, ran for vice president of the Auburn Fire Local, and served as vice president, I think, for 3 or 4 years, until I left and went to Southbridge, and then became the secretary treasurer there and sat on the E-board, sat for several contract negotiations, became the vice president shortly thereafter, and then ultimately the union president for a good duration of my time there, which was, again, invaluable as far as learning. And being in those types of situations and contract negotiations, I'm happy to say that a vast majority of them went really well. and I'm proud of that because of not only you know, the benefits that it brought to the department, but also it's a compliment to the team that was around me at that particular time, because everybody did a great job, and it was truly a team effort. The thing about the ones that don't go so well is I feel like you learn a lot more during poor contract negotiations and how to navigate those tough times. I think that's where the learning really comes into play, and we had a few of those for a number of reasons. But at the end of the day, we were all successful in getting, you know, a good package together that the town could afford, that benefited the firefighters. And even outside of the contracts, we did special projects like cancer prevention. We brought in, through the contract negotiation process, we gave the firefighters the ability to get annual CAT scans and lung screenings to check for cancer. And then we did aortic screenings, and we did calcium scoring for the blood, and the town was willing to pay for that as a type of preventative medicine. We put together a whole cancer prevention committee. We ran fundraisers. We were completely self-sufficient from everything else because the role that I took as union president was, yeah, we always understand about the contract negotiations and all that stuff and grievances, but really it went back to, these are my men and women, and I have a responsibility of keeping them safe, and that I took seriously through the union side. Those were the channels that I could work at that particular time. And we had great success with establishing safety committee policies, like I said, the cancer prevention stuff. So it was just a lot more than just filing grievances and talking with the fire chief or the town manager at the time, so on and so forth. So it's always opportunities that provide you the benefit of doing the very best and the most good that you can in those particular situations.
Okay. If you were to be given the fire chief's job here in Newbury, there might be some resentment from the current membership on your appointment. How would you handle this?
Well, again, it goes back to communication. You know, I would want to hear upfront, honest concerns that any one of the members may have, and I'm open to anything, any type of criticism you want to give for any particular reason, and let's work together to kind of resolve those reasons and address those reasons. And if there's something that I can do better in my position or facilitate something that you need or want within reason, let's do it. Let's work as a team, let's do it. But there also has to be give and take. And there has to be an understanding, again, goes back to transparency and education of everybody to say, these are the confines that we have to operate in. As much as we would like to have a blank checkbook or unlimited schedules or whatever it may be, we do have constraints that we have to live within that are realistic to the community. And we can work together to improve anything, working conditions, salaries, safety concerns, equipment, apparatus, living arrangements, like whatever it is, let's work together. But we have to work together. There's no I, there's no you, there's us. That's it. That's how every successful organization works.
So we've had interest from some extremely experienced and well-qualified candidates for this position. Why should the town of Newbury hire you as the next fire chief?
Well, flat out, I'm your hardest working candidate. And that's not just, you know, boy, this guy really grinds the pen between the hours of 8 and 4. Now, this is being present and accounted for in all hours for all types of reasons. And this is also a long-term relationship and agreement and the longevity of leadership, consistency of leadership, consistency of policy moving forward. This is not a 3 to 5 year type of position. Oh, I'm off and gone off to better things or pad my pension or whatever that people leave, you know, for any reasons. This is a long-term, dedicated, let's move forward, let's move together forward as a team. Let's grow the department, let's meet the needs of the community, let's address the current issues, let's prevent the future issues from arising, let's all try to do the right thing here for the long term. Because I feel like, again, if other candidates, and I can't, speak for them, but if you have a candidate that leaves within a short amount of time, it's like you just kind of get the wheels going and you lose traction, and all of a sudden you're starting from scratch. This is not going to be that type of opportunity. This is a long-term, let's do the right thing for a decade or so moving forward.
Okay. So we have about 5 minutes for questions from the board. Madam Chair, I'm not sure how you want to.
Does the board have any questions? I'll start with you, Dana. Before we ask a question, can you set the ground rules as far as the types of questions that we can ask? And we have 2 candidates, should they be asked of both candidates? I mean, I want to keep the level playing field fair.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask unique questions because, of any of the, more follow-ups on some of the answers you've had on the current questions. We want to stay away from age and race and,
Right.
and everything like that. But if you have a follow-up question, or you want Mike to expand on a question that we had, I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Dana, do you want to go first?
Thanks.
Did you
Sure.
want to? Did you want to pass?
No. I have a question that I think I can ask of both of you. And, as this new role, you're moving from really being an employee for a chief to, you're kind of moving into the limelight of the town and the citizens and the board. And my question is there's going to be wants and needs that your department is going to need in the future that you are going to have to, help us sell those fiscally to the citizens. When you ask us for something big, which somewhere down the road that's going to happen, and we may have to, it may actually have to be addressed by an override. That's something that's going to be difficult for all of us to come, to come forward and be able to get those monies. How are you going to go about doing that to help the citizens improve the department?
Well, it goes back to establishing those relationships and talking to people, getting out into the community. Again, talk about doing a needs assessment for the department. We're also going to do one, solicit information from the community at large. Like we serve citizens in Newbury. We need to hear from them. So if there are again good things, there are bad things. As far as the department head goes, like you have to have a full understanding of the big picture. And, the fiscal responsibility and projections and the hard work that have gone in through Newbury, have really put the town in a great spot as far as borrowing power, capabilities, the fact that, keeping the 5 to 10% reserves and short-term cash payments versus borrowing and long-term borrowing and making sure that we're paying off debt on a regular basis and opening projects or opportunities for new projects in the future. So again, that needs to be explained, to the community and the taxpayer to say that we're trying to do the right fiscal thing here as far as keeping the town affordable, making sure that your concerns are addressed, showing them the actual numbers and how it all shakes out to say that, as far as, our ability to borrow and how that's going to impact your taxes and the interest that we're going to pay over time for large capital expenses or projects, and then reaping the benefits, what are they going to be the long-term benefits, and how that's going to impact potentially service delivery, right? So all those things have to go into it, and those things are nurtured and established from the very beginning. Not that, next year we're going to need to replace a ladder truck or do a major reno on the fire station. Maybe in 6 months' time we'll start talking to people. No, that needs to start now. People need to be educated about where the department stands, where it's going, what we need, and how the department heads are all working together to put together that plan and say, we do have your best interest in mind.
Thank you.
Time for one more question.
I am.
Bill?
Michael, as a minimum, Newbury citizens and the town leaders would expect you to demonstrate leadership relative to public safety responses, fires, accidents, emergencies. What proactive programs would you institute or continue that would educate and equip citizens, especially our aging population?
Well, yeah, so a coined phrase out of the fire service within the past couple of years is community risk reduction. And that encompasses all your demographics and then puts together targeted plans and programs for everybody. So we've always kind of been familiar with the stop, drop, and roll, go to the schools, save programs, look at the fire trucks, you know, all that stuff, which is great and beneficial. Then we get into things like, you know, do we go out and talk to graduating seniors about dorm fire safety and, you know, safety in general when they're talking about going off to college. You're talking about programs like home fire safety inspections that any person at large in the community can do. As far as we can come in on a scheduled basis and do fire, basically safety plans for your home and evaluations. Look at your smoke detectors, talk about your heating appliances, so on and so forth. And then we get into the very vulnerable population of the elderly. We have Senior Safe already established within the state. We need to continue to fund that through the grant. We need to continue to put that out there as far as a great piece of communication, right? The interaction of our elderly community and aging community. And then at the same time, it's a two-headed sword, is to say that, you know, to Mr. Packer's question was, you know, how do we educate the public on some of these financial things? Well, all our elderly population are fixed income. They need to know, you know, up front, like how this is going to impact them and why it's benefit, con, pro, con, things of that nature. So there's really a number of benefits for those community outreach programs that we need to continue to do.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for the board, Mike?
I'm
I'm
sorry.
Unless there's a reason you have, John, is there a time, I think that it would be foolish to have the whole board be able to ask the candidate a question, unless you have a reason.
No, we have an hour. We're on the schedule.
Then, Leslie, you got anything pertinent?
If you are awarded the position as chief, will you lose your union affiliation? And are you presently in the union? And how would you handle your book if you had to become chief? For the local, would you lose your ability because now you become a town employee versus?
Yes, I would have to come out of the union. I would resign the position, and then you would no longer have any type of affiliation. You go down as a person that they have different classifications, and one of them is promoted up, promoted out.
So your arbitration ability would become null and void?
Correct, other than the contract entered in with the town, but not affiliated with any type of union.
Thank you.
You'd be management.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And real quick,
No,
and
that's
I'm not
fine.
positive, you can stop me on this question.
No, we'll switch.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I went to Clark University, and it's a heck of a haul down 495. How do you intend to handle that distance, because your residence must be in that
I
area?
live in Middleton.
Okay, good. Answered it well.
I'd like to
Ms.
give
Wellington, relocate.
the applicant an opportunity to ask us some questions.
I think that generally speaking, because the process has been fair, transparent, and upfront, I've done a lot of research on the community. It seems like the town is in great fiscal shape, and we'd like to keep it that way. And but there are some pressing issues that the department needs addressed. And it's going to be some difficult, honest conversations had across the table for everybody, because we cannot have a reduction of services. We can't have interrupted services. And quite frankly, the taxpayers have invested a lot of money to get an ALS ambulance service, and it would be highly detrimental if we lost that license. In lieu of that, the employees and the team in the fire department have worked really hard to be able to establish that service as well, and it would be a disservice to them to lose it as well. So every authority that I have, everything in my power that I can do to work collectively with you, with them, as a team, to make sure that we correct everything that is concerned, short-term, long-term, but let's have some good, honest conversations. Let's put together some good, honest plans. I have thick skin, and it's something that I really would like to challenge to do. So, but as far as any open questions, I don't, because again, through the process, everything's been pretty transparent, and I have an understanding of everything has happened and what you're looking for. So I just appreciate your time and consideration. It's been an honor to even make it to this point, and I'm just hoping for a favorable outcome. So thank you, appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One quick comment. Congratulations on Nero's Law.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
As soon as I said, I knew what that was.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of hard work too, putting that program together. Again, one of those self-starter things, but it's a long time coming. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna shake your hand, I have a
Oh,
cold.
no,
Registered.
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Does the board need a quick break before bringing it up?
I'd like
I
a
think we can take a break.
I think that's a good idea.
Second and stretched.
Instead of getting stretched.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'll go check on the other candidate.
Yep, he's here.
You haven't nodded off yet.
I have not.
Right, that's your bedtime.
Getting close, chief.
Oh,
Getting close.
just- We all set? Can I bring the other candidate in?
Please.
Dave, you can make yourself comfortable.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know you may have one already for me. Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Board, this is Dave Evans, our second and final candidate for tonight. And I'm going to be asking the questions, and please feel free to answer the questions to the board.
Sure.
And at the end of questioning the board, we'll have some questions for you, some follow-up questions. And then, if time allows, if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask them, and maybe we can answer. So we have a series of questions to ask you over the next 40-45 minutes. We want you to answer them completely but succinctly. So if you can answer them in a few sentences, that's fine, but we want you to answer them completely. You don't need to cut off the answers just because you think you're going too long. But I have about 12 questions I want to get through in the course of that time, and then the board has some follow-up questions.
Gotcha.
I'd like you to start the process by telling us a little bit about yourself and why the town of Newbury and the Newbury Fire Department is a good professional fit for you.
Sure. Sure. I just handed you a new packet, and in that packet, it has, again, the resume, and it has a couple of other things in there. But for your viewing pleasure, there is a transition plan in there too that I wanted you to see. But again, I'm Dave Evans. I am a lifelong resident of this area. Grew up in Merrimack, and I built a house in West Newbury 25 years ago. My wife is from West Newbury. Just celebrated our 34th wedding anniversary, and have two wonderful kids, and two boys, my son Tyler and Cameron. And they gave me the big pep talk before I came. You can do this, Dad, and this is great. And great, thanks, guys. But I have spent my life in public service. I started in the fire service a little later than some, not for any other reason than I was in an education piece of it for a little while there, but I've always been in that situation, trying to help my community. But every experience that I have had, whether it was back in the schools, coaching soccer, Cub Scouts, fire service, the fire academy, has brought me to this moment in my life. I have always looked forward to the day that I could, become a fire chief and lead a department. And I've had some offers, and I've had some feelers for some other departments, but I honestly feel that being from the area I'm from, the towns I'm from, Newbury is where I should be. it's the size, it's where I'm very comfortable with. As I said, grew up in this area, spent some nights fishing on, off of Plum Island as a kid. Some of my buddies, spent a lot of time on some soccer fields, some softball fields here as well. But I really do feel that every experience that I've had over the last 30 years of my life have brought me to this moment in Newbury and to be the next Newbury Fire Chief.
Okay. In your view, is there a difference between leadership and management?
In my view, the question is leadership and management.
Is there a difference
Is there
between
a difference between two? Sure. A good leader. There's a difference between a manager and a leader, and as a leader, that person has to be able to, set the example, put the bar high, and make sure they understand the situations. They're passionate, they're loyal, they're respected. A manager can go in and they can see the board here. I got to make sure I got to do the schedules. I got to do this. I got to do that. But the leader of that, whether it's the fire department or whether it's a school system, they have to have that passion and that direction and that communication skills. That I think, yes, a manager may have some of the similar ones, but I really do believe that it's more of it's an easier cookie cutter thing for a manager to sit down and read the paperwork and do it that way, where a leader is going to lead by example, and do, whether it's communication or it's that type of thing. So,
what would you say your leadership style is?
I'm a very, if you speak to some of the other people out there that I've worked with in the past, I am a very communication-based leader. I listen. I have, from what I understand in myself, in my professional life, in my private life, people will come to me and I have to listen first and then give them my opinion. But I think it starts with my leadership, my communication skills, my ability to collaborate, my ability to see the big picture and offer up a realistic opinion on what the situation is.
If you had to list one thing you stand for as a leader, what would that be?
That's a great question. One thing that I stand for as a leader, I would put the team first. I would have to make sure that I do what's right for my team, the safety of my team first and foremost. I'm not going to ask someone to do something that I can't do myself or that I wouldn't do myself. So.
Please describe your experience with an EMS system, both operational and administrative.
So operational, I am, for the last, since 2007, I have been part of two different systems. I've been an emergency first responder through West Newbury, and I've been an EMT basic for both Groveland Fire and West Newbury Fire. I work on a Class 5 non-transporting ambulance at this time. So the day-to-day structure of my EMS is dealing with patients, setting up schedules, EPCRs, doing the paperwork that needs to get sent in, that type of thing for the operational piece, ordering equipment, making sure everything runs, day-to-day checks, that type of thing. When it comes to the other piece of it, that is probably where I have my biggest weakness is that side of it, because both of the towns that I work with are both we use private EMS. So we do the zero bidding. We do a bidding piece for Groveland and West Newbury. But I believe that if I sit down with the town administrator and the deputy, I can get through that pretty simply, pretty easily. So.
In today's environment, it's very difficult to hire and retain firefighter paramedics. How would you address this?
So here I understand that we've lost a couple of really solid medics recently. So my first step would be having a conversation with the ones that we already have, the per diem medics that we have, and get their understanding, or me understand, what is the issue that they face. Why aren't they filling shifts, that type of thing. And then if I had to, I would meet with the deputy and the town administrator and look at the bigger picture. How do we hire quality paramedics. You know, is it based off of the, you know, the rate of pay? Is it based off of experience? But I think we can get through that as well. Right now, fire departments want paramedics, and in talking with some of the other departments locally and across, you know, the Commonwealth, paramedics get paid a little bit more money on some other different fire departments and private EMS. So I think that would be one of the big things, first and foremost, is addressing that need. But again, homegrown is probably the best piece. If you sit back and see if we have an opportunity with people that we have that want to go get their paramedic, do we sit back and do we say no to that? I would say no. I would, you know, try to figure out a way to work out a system where, you know, if some of our EMT basics, or if we have a couple of EMTAs on the roll that would like to go get their paramedic, you know, I would look into how we would make that happen as well. So, you know, the recruitment is the biggest piece, I think. But again, talking with some of the other departments in private and fire-based, it is a wage-based issue right now that they're all facing. So I think if we could address that, we could probably keep them, so.
With that problem in mind, and, you know, the size of Newbury being small, you think town of Newbury should be running an ALS ambulance service, or is there a different model that the town could be looking at?
I believe that with the ALS model, I think it's the most, I mean, when it comes to the safety of the townspeople, that level of care is really where you should be. So I think that taking that level of care away could be a detriment to the safety and well-being of of the people, you know, both townspeople and fire and EMS based. So I think I would really work hard to, you know, to keep that in place, to be honest with you. I think I wouldn't want to go backwards. I think if we work hard together, I think we could find a plan that works to keep, whether it's a full-time medic or our per diem medics, in place. I get it. I'm part of a BLS system myself, and we're always calling for ALS. We're always in need. So it's something that the town of Newbury, you know, it's a situation where I would not want to see us lose that. I would not want to see us go away from the ALS, to be honest with you. So I'd work hard to figure out a plan to get it and keep it.
So we've talked a lot about EMS. What other problems do combination departments face throughout the Commonwealth?
Well, I think, again, I can tell you from my own experience and talking with, you know, some of my colleagues across the Commonwealth, call firefighters are getting burnt out to a point where, you know, it's hard for them to get out of bed at 2 o'clock. So you have to get them, keep them, and you have to be able to give them some incentives to stay. I can't imagine this department without the call and the volunteer and the per diem guys. That is, you know, the meat and potatoes in the long run. I think the combination departments during the day are such a necessity. You need those full-time people to take care of a lot of the other things, the fire prevention, the public education, some of the medicals. But after a certain hour, you have to rely on them. I mean, it's a small town. You have 6 full-time guys. We've just lost 2. So, I mean, it is such a necessity to figure out a way to keep those call firefighters coming back. You know, so in West Newbury, you look at our roll right now. There are 28 firefighters on our roll, and of the 28, 90% of them have come through our junior programs that are between the ages of 18 and 27. We got them young through a program. They stayed. If you look at some of the other fire departments around here, they have also benefited from that program. You know, so if we can do something like that to bring them back as a young age, and then keep them here. But the recruitment and the retention of the call firefighters, I think, is key. And then looking down the road, do we need more full-time? Do we need more per diem to cover those bases? But we're not alone in this fight. Right now, Groveland, we have 3 full-time firefighters. I'm one of them. I'm a full-time lieutenant there with the chief and one other firefighter. And we have 28 call firefighters. We've put together groups to try to alleviate some of that pressure. We have 6 groups working right now. groups of 3 or groups of 4 to try to alleviate the pressure of bringing people back, and trying to get people out of bed. So there are things that I've tried in the past that have worked. There are things that I've tried in the past that have not worked. But you have to be able to reach, all of those. And again, I look at some of the names on the roll, and I know a lot of them. But it's some of the names from the past that I haven't seen in a long time that I would have to reach back out and say, why? Why haven't you been coming? But the idea of the importance of a call firefighter to this department, this size town, it's a must. It's unique. But across the Commonwealth, we're all having the same issues. You talk to call volunteer or combination chiefs or chief officers, they're in the same boat. They're trying to figure out how to keep their call firefighters in place and coming back to calls.
So if I was to call the chief in West Newbury or the chief in Groveland, what type of employee would they say you are?
I think they would tell you that I am respected, I'm honest, I'm fair, when it comes to whether a discipline issue or anything else that comes with, when it comes to personnel, I'm fair, I'm consistent, dedicated. If you talk to Chief Dwyer or Chief Valentine, I am always the first to step up. I am always the last to leave. And if that's probably one of my weaknesses, I'm probably the last one to leave most of the nights. So I think that's fair, consistent, passionate, dedicated, and I think the word leader would come out of their mouth as well.
What would your peers or staff say about you?
Same. I think if you talk to my, the younger kids, I say kids, if you talk to my younger firefighters in both towns, I think they will tell you that I am the one that they come to. When they have questions. I think that the veterans, they will tell you that I am the one that'll step up, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's a midnight call, or whether it's a community service opportunity. I'm the one that is the that will step up and take the bull by the horns. Again, though, loyal. I think they will tell you that I'm respected, I'm honest, hardworking, and passionate about the job.
Okay. When you were promoted to your current or last position, what was the biggest challenge you faced, and how did you overcome it?
When I was promoted to deputy chief, the biggest hurdle I faced was that I was promoted over a very well-respected and loved colleague who happened to be a sibling of mine. And it took us a little bit of talking and a little bit of, there might have been a little bit of crying involved, that it was, that I was promoted over that person and he was not. I was promoted from lieutenant to deputy at that time over a captain that was, had been there, and it was probably, that promotional piece was probably pretty difficult for him. And again, so it took some time to get over that. But again, it was a situation, you deal with it, you sit down, you look at the process. The process was a good process. The testing piece was a good process, and the decision was made. So I think in that issue, that's no different than other departments when someone gets passed over for it, and you come up together. So there may be some hard feelings you have to get through as well.
Okay.
So.
Share a professional experience you had with a difficult employee that you supervised. How did you handle it, and what was the outcome for the employee and the department? Or the workplace, you can use the fire academy.
Sure. I was probably on the job less than a month at the fire academy. And beloved instructor and coordinator, and one of my full-time coordinators had an altercation. And had to sit down and had to go to HR, and myself and HR had to do an investigation. Had to go to the marshal, and I had to terminate that person. And again, it was, I have known this person quite a while. I have known this person as one of the, again, most beloved instructors. To this day, I still look at that person with reverence. And he has moved on very well. But knowing that That was a situation that had to be taken care of, and taken care of correctly, following the process that was in place by the state of Massachusetts and Department of Fire Services. Our HR department did a very thorough investigation and came to me and said, you have to terminate. And I'm like, okay, not a conversation I wanted to have, but it had to be done. So.
As the fire chief, you're gonna be implementing some things that the firefighters aren't gonna like. How do you get the firefighters on board with this?
I think through communication. I think from day one, it has to be with my deputy, with my chief officers, with my staff. You have to have those hard conversations. The rules are the rules. They're there for everybody. You look at what we have. If they're solid and they're in place for a reason, and you don't have to change them, fine. But that leadership team has to sit down and look at all those things that are there in place, all those rules and regs. And if you know, they're there for everybody. As I said earlier, I have to follow I hold myself in the highest moral values, and you know, so I have to hold them to the same. And the standard is here. I have to hold them to the standard. Look, I have friends in this town. I have people that I have known for a long time on this department. There will have to be some hard discussions with some of them, and if they don't like it, I understand that, but they still have to follow the rules. That's what has to be. That's how a good team functions. You know, and the goal of this department, it should be in every department, public safety. It is the ultimate, you'll hear me say this and people will tell you I say this, it's the ultimate team sport. You all have to be on the same playing field. You all have to follow the same rules. If you don't, we have to have that conversation.
So you're at a house fire, say food on the stove, firefighters are in the adjacent rooms, opening windows to let the smoke out. You see one of the firefighters take a gold watch off the nightstand, put it in their pocket. What do?
That's a great question. You, as the chief officer, and I saw it and I witnessed it, a couple of conversations. One, I'm probably not going to embarrass that firefighter right there and then. I'm going to pull him outside and put him in my cruiser, and I'm going to have a very heart-to-heart with that person and let them know that I saw what they did. There are consequences for what he did. And obviously I'd be having a conversation with the town administrator and probably the police chief as well in that situation. Again, I just said, I hold myself to the highest moral standards. Our community members are the most important part of this. You have to take care of them. If that is a situation, you have to deal with it immediately and correctly. So yeah, that would be, I would have that conversation, return the watch obviously to the homeowner, explain to the homeowner, this is what happened, I'm taking care of it. You'll probably hear from me later on, or probably from the police chief as well. And then move on from there through whatever our progressive discipline process is for the town of Newbury.
As the leader, how do you make sure everyone in the organization knows what's expected of them?
It starts from day one. It is, again, as I said, it's a communication piece. It is day one, boots on the ground. I mean, you have that conversation from top down. I meet with my deputy, my officers, have that meeting with every member of the department, and go from there. But it's hard, it's fast, and again, there's a policy. We all have to follow it. So if the rule is this, we all have it. So yeah, I will be taking the time to have those conversations, those necessary conversations with, again, the deputy, the officers, and meeting, you know, with every single firefighter in the department. Have it as a big meeting first. You know, that first week is going to be fast and furious. Meeting with the chief, the deputy, the town administrator, board of selectmen probably as well, and everybody that's in that station. You know, the on-duty personnel, and then setting up a larger conversation in the back room on Morgan Ave on Central Street with the rest of them. And those who are not there, I will meet with them one-on-one. It's cliche, but if you talk to people that I've been as an administrator for these last 23 years, I always say I have an open door policy. And a lot of people say that. The door is open, please come in. If the door is closed, wait your turn. But when the door is closed and it's you and I, have your conversation with me. You can yell, you can scream, you can cry. It's okay when the door is closed. You want to have a shouting match with me, close the door. It's going to happen. It always does. But when you open that door and you leave, again, as I said, it's the ultimate team. You have to be on the same page when that door is open. So it starts with communication. It always ends with communication as well.
Okay. What's your level of involvement in budget creation and budget management?
Again, great question. I have spent the last 23 years developing budgets between high schools, the fire academy, and both departments that I work for. I've spent many of hours with both of my chiefs working on the local budgets. I'm very well versed in the municipal piece of it, dealing with town bids, state bids, grants. Trust me, I've been there and done it. For the fire academy, I was putting together 3-year budgets. So when I started in 2017, it was 2017, 18, and 19 that I had to present to the fire marshal and the executive board once a year. So it was everything from expenditures and purchases and RFPs, and like I said, I understand the bidding and the bidding group, the list that I have to deal with between the state and municipal, and even national when it comes to the FEMA grants and things like that. But budgets, I have spent a lot of hours, at my office working on budgets. Spent some time in front of the finance committees between Groveland and West Newbury when it comes to ordering equipment and gear and things like that. Spent time with the Board of Selectmen in West Newbury, working on some things. We're working on a new tanker grant right now too. So, but I'm very comfortable working with budgets, again, state and local. So,
Okay.
Process.
What's your experience writing and obtaining grants?
I have, again, since 2017, I have spent many hours. I have written grants through FEMA for AFG grants. If you look at the Bridgewater campus for the Mass Fire Academy, we wrote grants for flashover trailers, burn trucks, 3 new pumpers and a ladder. I'm working right now on Safer Grant with Groveland. So at Pentucket Regional High School, wrote a grant for a fire academy, police public safety academy through the DOE. We were awarded $50,000 one year, $25,000 the next year. So I'm very well versed in writing a grant as well, sir.
Okay. And again, to the board and
To the board, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do the swivel.
No. But again, to the board and
So I apologize if I'm still staring at Jack. So.
The AFG grant is for equipment and the Safer grant is for.
It's for firefighters, right, I'm sorry. Yes.
What level of experience you have in collective bargaining and labor relations?
So, was a member of one of the strongest unions in the Commonwealth for quite a few years with MTA, Mass Teachers Association. Worked with Pentucket Regional Union while I was there. When I was at Durham and at Oyster River High School, I worked very closely with the guild president when it came to putting together the contracts and specific issues that would arise that they were looking for in a contract. At the Fire Academy, even though it's not a closed facility, I worked with call, true volunteer, and full-time firefighters that work for within the union, the PFFM. So worked with the upper level echelons of the PFFM on different things, whether it was the OSHA things when it came to public safety. So working with contracts, I don't believe it's going to be an issue, sir. And I'm sorry if I'm not addressing everybody.
No, that's fine. And the PFFM is who?
The Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts. And I also work with the Mass Call Vol, which is the MCVFA, which is the Call and Volunteer Association as well. When it comes to, there's not a lot of negotiations for contracts and things like that, but it could be for insurance and things like that. So,
as the new fire chief, there might be some resentment from the current membership on your appointment. How would you handle this matter?
Again, open door to communication. I would, again, it starts top down. I would sit down with each and every one of those individuals and have a legit conversation if there are issues. It's a perfect opportunity to sit down and understand what the gripe really is. Really, if there's an issue with me being appointed, let's deal with it now, because I don't want it to fester through the years. Let's deal with it now. There's a reason that they offered me and hired me. Let's figure out what the real issue is and move on from there. But it is a conversation that may have to be had. Not that I welcome it, but I welcome it. I'm sure there are people out there that wanted to have somebody else, or someone, you know, the person that was before me. So be it. But it has to be a conversation early on in this, probably the first week. So.
We've had interest from highly qualified and extremely experienced people for this position. Why should the town of Newbury hire you as the next fire chief?
As I said earlier, every experience that I have had in my life led me here today, to this moment, in front of you people, for this opportunity. Every experience I've had, whether it's dealing with the public in an EMS situation, or it's dealing at the high school level, or it's dealing it with at the state or local level, has brought me here to this community. I had this conversation with my wife 2 months ago, and I said to her, I'm like, it is where I want to be. I've grown, like I said, I've grown up in this area. I know the area very well, probably better than some think, and better than some others that I know. But it's the right spot for me. It's the community members. It's the high schools. It's the, you know, it's the people that belong to this town that I've worked with over the years that have made that feeling that this is the right place. And again, it's not always, you know, cookies and cream and roses. I get that, but you know, I've been in this town for a long time. Like I said, I've been in the area. I spent many a day here as a firefighter, as an EMS person. Spent many days on the highway with many of your people. I spent many a day in the woods with many of your people, and it's always been positive. It's been cordial. It's been respectful. And that's the place I want to be. That's the place I want to work with. You know, the people, the board of selectmen and the town administrator and the firefighters in this town, to help protect and keep safe the people in this town. That's where I want to be.
That's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. If the board has questions.
Thank you, sir. I started with you last time, I'm gonna go down this way.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Evan?
Well, you live close, that's one thing.
I am 4 miles from Byfield Station, sir.
And one of my questions was really gonna be, how do you think that, like from the 90s to 217, and then the fire academy really had prepared you for this position, and you certainly answered a lot of those things, from budget to other things. Is there anything you'd like to add, especially the educational side? You spent a lot of time in those buildings with kids.
Sure. I think one of the questions that was asked was, you know, it's really a recruitment and retention question. It's, you have to start young. You have to, the fire service is the best job in the world. I really, truly believe that. It's not just about getting into the kindergarten classes or the high school classes, because everybody likes to see the red fire trucks and they all. It's really about explaining the history that goes along in the fire service to try to hook that person. It is community-based. You have to get out there and you have to get your message out. And it is talking with the council on aging, and it is talking with the high school principal, and it is talking with the elementary school principal to let them know that the fire department, or public safety in general, police, fire, EMA, it's a great job. You know, and it's out there for your kids to move up and to get into. Not all moms and dads want their loved ones to go into burning buildings or such. But it's not all that either. It's, you know, you educate them. There's always a teaching moment in everything you do. And so if you start young, and you start that recruitment process, and you offer a junior program or you offer something like that, you're going to build a pretty sturdy foundation for the future in your fire department, in your town. But you really have to get that community message out there in different avenues, I guess. And I know I've rambled a little bit about this, because I'm very passionate about the recruitment piece and the retention piece when it comes to getting them young, getting them back into high school, and having them want to come, not just visit the fire station for an open house, but understand what they really do and how they can actually become part of that. And it goes back to the people that came before. You know, one of the things that I did in Groveland was I reached out to the retired guys and girls. And I said, hey, I know people haven't reached out to you in a long time, but we'd really like to keep you part of this and have you tell your story to this group, to the next group, so they understand where this department came from. That's where we want to be with Newbury as well. We want to bring them back in and move forward with them, so.
Thank you. Leslie?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Have you had the opportunity to tour both facilities here in Newbury? And do you feel they're adequate or in need of improvement? Or are you satisfied as far as doing the best for the town as they sit?
So I have been in both stations numerous times. Have not looked at the Byfield station as in depth, because a lot of times when I go over mutual aid, I go to Morgan Ave. And I have been there prior to the merger between everybody, but to make it Newbury Fire instead of the two, and afterwards. And so I've been in there a few times. And so if I had to say, I think I would sit down and look at the Morgan Ave station first, and look at the building itself. So there are things in that building that probably need to be either fixed, replaced, repaired. So I probably would sit down with the deputy and with the town administrator and put something together on either revitalizing or renewing. I know that there is, in your capital, I saw that there was a need to look at the fire station. And I agree in that station. I'd have to go back through Byfield Station. I know that's the newer of the two, so.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
David, I was going to ask you what we're going to do on the first day you reported to work, but you handed out a 9-month transition plan.
Yes.
Which is, pretty impressive, and it looks pretty logical in the rationale, and I'm sure that when you answered Leslie's question, that's the kind of things you would ferret out in this transition plan.
Correct.
So that was good. What I wanted to know is, in West Newbury,
Yes.
are you doing anything specific with the aging population? We have an aging population in Newburyport.
Sure.
I think there's some opportunities there.
So are you asking about how I would address that as a,
What kinds of things do you do now? And
Oh, sure.
what
So
what
we
do you
do,
do in Newbury?
absolutely. So we do, we reach out to them. We have a pretty good working relationship with the director in both towns, West Newbury and Groveland. So we've done some public ed for them over the last year and a half in both towns, where we do blood pressure clinics. We go out. I actually was asked to teach a CPR class to a group of 25, 80 to 90-year-old of my both elderly female and males, because they felt, God forbid it takes you guys 6-7 minutes here. I at least understand how to do this. So I went in and I taught a CPR class, and they even told me, I don't want a certification. I can't get down on my knees and do the certification for you, Dave. But I just want to, just in case, if that one moment I have to do it, I have to do it. So we've done everything from having dinners for them at the fire station, pancake breakfast for them, trying to keep them involved, and then ask them how we can be more resourceful and helpful for them. We've gone into their homes to check their smoke detectors, and a lot of times it's like, oh my goodness, the fire department's coming, they're going to come and shut me down. It's like, really, it's not. It's to come in and make sure there's no rugs that you're going to trip on. It's that your smoke detectors are actually working. That there's not certain things in certain areas that are going to hurt you. Because a lot of them want to stay home. They don't want to go anywhere else. They want to be in their home. So getting out, we've actually pushed some stuff out on public, on social media in the past, where if you want us to come in and check your home, please call us, and we would set it up schedule it online. So we do spend a lot of time with the Council on Aging and our seniors on how we can better help them and how we can better serve them.
Right.
So we're always open for their ideas as well. So I'd love to do that here.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dana?
All right, well, I'm going to ask you basically the same question that I asked the last candidate, and
Sure.
It's kind of a follow-on to what Leslie talked about, and I also am impressed with your transition plan. Your systems program review, you talk about, infrastructure, physical plant, short-term and long-term capital improvements.
Yep.
And it also seems like you probably have some management experience at some level, is what I'm guessing. And so moving from kind of the worker bee into the chief position, and when you talk about what we may need in the future as far as long-term capital improvements, we have to sell that dollar to the public and to the citizens.
Correct.
So what I want to know is, how are you going to help me make my job easier to make that sale?
It's always a teaching moment. It's always a teaching moment. And I'll use the Morgan Street Station as an example. Invite the public in. First of all, sit down with the fire service, and with my people there, the deputy and the officers and members, and find out really, let's take a walk through and look at, is it the ceilings, is it the water, find out really what needs to be done. Have a conversation with the town administrator and board of selectmen, and say, hey, I'd really like to have, not an open house, but a teaching moment with the public, to have them come in. So I can actually have that face-to-face with them and answer their questions and walk them through it to say, hey, see, this is really important, whether it's a leaky pipe or an asbestos around this or whatever. So they don't come back and say, oh, it's just the fire department, they want more money. So they actually can physically see that. So opening it up and having that, again, I have to have that conversation with my group, my team, and then with this team. But you're absolutely right. You have to be able to, and I hate to use the phrase sell it, but you have to understand, they have to understand the importance of what it is. Whether it is a new fire truck, or replacing a new station, or revitalizing that station. And creating that list, and as you looked on that plan, it's gonna take a little bit of time. And yes, that's 9 months, but you look at it, sometimes they overlap, sometimes they will stretch to a year. But you sit down, have that conversation, you put the list together, and then bring this team together and say, Dana, this is what I would want, I want you to see this first. As a select person, I want you to come in and see this. Here's my thought, what is really your thought? What can we actually do as a team to present this to the public? So it's not like it's us first down, it has to be us on the same page, meaning the public as well. So I think that once we put that list together, and then we have that conversation, I get it, money is tough. It's the same everywhere right now, but there are some things that have to be taken care of that would be the priority, short term. And then we can say, hey, we don't have to worry about, and I don't mean this in any way, but Byfield Station right now, because it's the newer of the two. Morgan Ave is this, we need to really address this. But I think that's how I would address that first and foremost, so.
Thank you.
I hope that answers it, again.
Yeah, I think it did.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm gonna ask if you have any questions of us.
That's always a loaded question, and I guess, I think the process, and I had a great conversation with Jack at the end of the process last week. You've really done your homework. You've really, between Jack's group and Bernie's group, I think the process was very solid. The only question that I've always asked in one of these interviews is there any reason, or is there anything holding you back from offering me the position that I can talk about right now and address and alleviate fears or anything like that? That's always my final question. I asked the
Well,
fire
you
marshal.
turned that right around.
Well, I asked that same question. And it's not a loaded question, but I want to alleviate, if that is the case, I want to alleviate that now. So I don't go home and then all of a sudden I get a call from Alicia, hey, what did you really mean by this?
Can we ask that question?
Well done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
One of the questions that I have is, as deputy chief,
Yep.
how much experience have you had dealing with the press, dealing with the public,
Yep, so.
communicating outward facing?
Absolutely. So I can actually address this in both the fire service and education, even at the academy. I've had to deal with the public and with the newspapers very often. Most of the time, it's usually at a really bad situation.
Right.
So you have to be very careful what you say. You're not allowed to say certain things. There are certain people that are called public information officers that I highly recommend. I had great people in place that, you know, that when, before I spoke, they would be like, Dave, you need to take a step back because you're emotional right now. Somebody passed away in this fire. You need to stop. So in certain situations, that's the fire chief's job. But there are other certain, when he's dealing with the fire, it would be up to the deputy to go over and have that conversation. So again, it's not just jumping into it. You have to have that. You have to be trained how to do that too in a lot of cases. At the fire academy, I had a great person. Jen was amazing as a PIO. Whenever I introduced new this, new that, or we had new equipment coming in or getting a grant, how do you want to do this? How do you want to present this? You know, yes, the marshal's going to do it, and then the director's going to do it. So it's something I haven't run into where it's been a bad situation. You know, I take the time to take a step back, talk to the right people, and then do the presentation. So been there. It's not very often that the fire chief wants to give that up sometimes because they want to be the one that talks about it. But if they're at a bad situation, they're going to take over that and they're going to say, okay, Dave, I want you to go address the press. I said, okay, I have no problem with that. So.
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Well, Dave, thank you very much for your time.
No, I appreciate the
and your interest
opportunity.
in the chief's position, and you'll be hearing from us shortly.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Not that chief.
I'm not going to shake your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It was nice meeting
Thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, do we want to take another short recess or
Yeah, I'll walk them out.
deliberate? Anyone,
Oh,
anybody want to run to the ladies or men's room again before we haven't finished on the audio yet?
thank you, everybody.
I'm good.
My wife will kill me.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Okay, Jack comes back. I don't know Jack, is his name John?
It's Jack, he calls himself Jack.
Jack.
Yeah.
He can walk us through.
It's one of those John nicknames that nobody could ever figure
I
out.
know. Okay, so I was hoping you could give us some guidance and walk us through what our next steps are as we deliberate.
The rankings of the.
Yeah, I can just, let me just give you a brief, you know, after the assessment center, we met with the town administrator and the assessors get together and they give us our feeling on each candidate. You have the rough scores in the document that I gave, but as I had said before, we look to group the candidates. So when they make it to this point, again, the scores are kind of out the window because, you know, those are our top two candidates, and that's not why they made it to tonight. So tonight is another process. But as far as the assessment center goes, the assessors felt the first candidate that we had, Michael, he holds a firefighter's position in the town of Middleton. He has served as, he was a lieutenant, I believe, in a call department that he was with years ago. He finished above average in all 4 exercises. Based on the assessment center, the assessors felt he was a good candidate for the position of fire chief. However, the assessors were a little concerned with his lack of management level rank, you know, not being a lieutenant, captain or deputy chief, etc. Getting that, you know, a little more closeness with the chief of department on how things actually run. Dave Evans, he's a career fire lieutenant in Groveland and an on-call deputy fire chief in West Newbury. As he mentioned, he was also the director of the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy. And I'm not sure what budget he oversaw there, but it's pretty substantial. He also finished above average on all the exercises. The assessors felt he was a good candidate for the position of fire chief. Of the 3 candidates, the assessors commented on how well mannered Dave was through all the exercises. And that was just, just how he handled himself. What you see is what you get, I think, with some of the comments. And one of the assessors also commented on his political correctness throughout the process. So, just from my personal knowledge, working for the Fire Academy as the director, working for the State Fire Marshal, very difficult position. I'm not sure that anybody's held it as long as Dave has, because it's very politically charged and a tough position to hold. So just by holding that position that he did, we feel that he, can navigate the political process that needs to be navigated as a fire chief. We don't need to go into the other candidate, but again, on the next page, you can see the scores. They're grouped very close. And then we recommended that both Michael and Dave go to this interview process.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so us as a board,
Madam Chair, if I may,
yes?
what is everybody's feeling? Does anybody want to wait a week and vote on this at the next select board? Or what's like the feeling of
No,
the
well,
board on?
my feeling is we need leadership in the fire department. I think it's imperative that we move this forward tonight. That's the way I feel on that. I think it's important that Newbury gets a fire chief tonight. So, do we want to discuss the strengths that we feel and weaknesses of the candidates? I wanted to say weaknesses because I think they were all strong, personally made. I want me to start? I can start. I took some notes during the interview process of each one. I think that both candidates were qualified, were strong. I think they can both lead a department. I am a little bit concerned with the first candidate not having leadership experience as a deputy chief, the way the second candidate was. I have my notes that I took. For the first candidate, I have besides he has ideas on how to recruit and retain staffing, which is important right now. He understands, he's big on building trust. I circled that because I came back to it more than once. He has experience managing budgets. I felt he had limited experience, I think just because of his role in grant writing for grants. He does looking for the long term. My cons list was that, the experience is missing in leading like a deputy chief. And he has very limited experience, if probably none, in regards to water, ocean, Plum Island, and all things Plum Island. So that's a big piece for me. And Mr. Evans, again, I wrote here, he's familiar with the area. He understands the importance of the ALS system. I think both candidates did that really. He understands the importance of growing up a program for recruitment and retention. And I think that he has the experience with the fire academy. In teaching, I think is good from his perspective, that I got a feeling that he wants to kind of create a spark in the youth, Because, I mean, I can remember, you know, we were all volunteer, you know, it was like a fun thing to do, was to volunteer for the fire department. I mean, you wanted to do that, you couldn't wait to go do that as a kid. Yeah, I don't see that, I don't see that anymore. So, again, I don't have any kids either, but they're all grown. But he's respected, he has a large amount of experience with budgets and grant writing. And he understands how this department, it's unique to Newbury alone, has changed over time. We went from 2 independent call firefighting units to Newbury. And it didn't come with, you know, it was uncomfortable and itchy at times when that all happened. But I think the department now sees the benefit in having a municipal office, you know, position. And I think that it's important, at least it's unique to Newbury for us, is that he understands that. Because unless you can understand where you've been, it's difficult to know where to go forward. And the other thing that I feel he is important that came from the second candidate was that he understands the importance of building a community. And that is very important to Newbury, because right now we really I don't want to say we're fractured, but we're 3 separate and distinct parts. We're Byfield, we're Newbury, and we're Plum Island. To understand the town of Newbury, you know, we are the town of Newbury. But we need to build community for that, and pride in our community. There's a lot to be proud of here. So those are my takeaways from the 2 candidates. So I don't know if anybody wants to go next. Leslie, you want to go next?
I'm going to start with agreeing with Dana to sit and digest this information. However, I'll give you my opinions.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. The first candidate had great presentation. He had some great ideas, but I do believe that, you know, his lack of leadership also is not something that you take on the first time out of the gate. So I think both of them have terrific resumes, but I think his lays more in a managerial position.
Who's he? Which one?
I'm sorry,
Michael.
Michael.
The first?
Yes.
First one, okay.
And I didn't feel the passion that, I felt the want but not the passion. And I felt the passion and the want both from Mr. Evans. And he really seemed to be sincere, more sincere, and excited about the position. And really wants to get in and be part of the community as a whole. And his background, as far as his service is concerned, is very, very good. And that's what I have to say.
Okay. Hey, Jeff, do you want to?
When you get to be my age, you really respect experience. And certainly that man has a tremendous wealth of experience in some varied situations, including the schools and on to the academy. And like I said, when you're 76 years old, you certainly respect young people trying to go up the ladder. But if you're going to choose a fire chief for your town, experience speaks to me, and it seems that he has a wealth of it. And he certainly seems like a nice young man, a nice older man, a middle-aged man.
Bill?
I'm still still thinking about it, ask Dana.
All right, Dana, what were your pros and cons?
They both impressive. Mike was a great interviewee. He made really good eye contact.
Yeah.
He moved across the board as he was speaking to us. Dave, at the beginning, he seemed a little nervous. I didn't see him looking at anybody, but that's okay because I kind of understand that. But then as Dave went along, he became much more comfortable and was really like the passion was,
Right.
you could feel that the passion was there. I didn't write a whole lot. A couple things about Mike's answers. One was question 5, when you were promoted to your last or current position, what was the biggest challenge you faced? And I think maybe it was those answers, Mike really didn't have a good answer. He kind of skirted around that question, and I think it was because of the experience level that Jeff was just speaking of, that he didn't have an experience with those kinds of problems. Dave had a great answer to that question. I don't remember what it was, but I wrote down. I wrote that down. About. Oh, I know what it was. It was. He said it was a sibling. When he got promoted, a sibling was a captain and he was a lieutenant, and he got promoted over the captain's position. And he said he had a tough time with that. And I just thought that was a great answer. The professional experience you had with difficult employees. Dave had a great answer to that when he was starting to talk about the HR department and how the HR department spoke to him about how this is going to have to be handled. That's listening to everybody, like I call those cabinet members. That's listening to everybody in your group and hearing what they're saying, and then you being the tough leader having to make those tough decisions. So I really like that answer too. This was kind of easy, but how are you going to implement something that some people don't want you to do? Dave had they both had good answers to that question. The leadership styles and having, I have to have higher standards for myself before I can expect higher standards from you. That was talked about by both folks. The gold watch question, they both made an assumption right at the beginning that the guy actually stole somebody else's watch. I didn't particularly, I picked up on that right away, but maybe that was a watch that he knew didn't belong in the house. I don't know. But Dave's answer, Dave had a great answer about how he was going to pull him aside, bring him outside, talk to him about it. You didn't even have to ask him whether he was going to call the chief of police or not. He actually volunteered that he would have to bring the chief of police in with that answer. I thought he had a better answer to that question. The question 9, I don't even know what I wrote down there. But you mentioned, Alicia, about talking, he was talking about we and us already. Even right now in this interview, he was talking about we and us as he being, part of this group now. I thought that was really impressive. And you mentioned this too, about what he already knew about our history, where we are now, and where his vision is on where we're going to go. Bill mentioned this already about his transition plan is fascinating, I think. He knows a lot about grants. I'm sure that you, I can see you smiling over there. I know that we have a few people in town that are that knows how to do that. He seems like he knows how to do that.
Grants are extremely important. to the
That
town.
that would be a great asset to have in the position. And I'm not even gonna get into my question of both of them, but that's all I have.
Bill?
Okay, I think Michael really dug into financial situation of the town of Newbury. I think he did his homework in terms of things in the town. I totally understand his point about he would be in there for the long run, and I can understand why he said that, I think, okay? But I have to say that I liked his idea with the job descriptions and formal expectations of people. That's sort of like a human resource thing that I'm very familiar with. I mean, across the board, I think everybody here has stated that David has had more extensive supervisory and managerial skills, experience and skills. When I looked at his transition plan, I think it says to me, I've been there, I've done that, I've done this before. Okay, and I think the content of his plan is something that will help the town of Newbury, will help the firefighters, which is most important, I think. And quite honestly, and I agree with what Dana said about grants. I mean, my personal opinion is, based on what everyone has said so far tonight, I think we can make a decision tonight. I don't think we need to sleep on anything.
Oh, no, we're making a decision tonight. Yeah, so,
Do you want a motion?
well, let's finish discussion first. So, another thing that I liked, I think the first candidate was, I think he, I didn't even ask him the question about being facing the public, because he would never have that opportunity, so, because that's not his role. I mean, but, I don't know, I think he'd be a good, I guess, deputy chief, but I'm not quite sure about the chief's position. I think that when you, Dana, just spoke about we and us, I mean, I know we have the town of Newbury Police and we have the town of Newbury Fire, but we regionalize a lot up here. We work together. I mean, together, if we don't work together with our surrounding communities to our own detriment, I think that's why he feels himself as we and us, because when there's a call, you all show up at the same time. Do you know what I mean? That explosion that happened in Newburyport, yous are all there. I mean, everybody goes. So, I don't know, I just think that coming from outside of the community, like Middleton, and honestly, most of his fire experiences was even farther away. Like I said, it's not with the water, it's not with the tidals, it's not with any of a river, I mean, none of that. And I just think that, for our purposes, I personally believe that the second candidate is a better fit for the town.
Alicia,
Yes?
listening to the two candidates, listening to what everyone said here, I really thought about things. There are some jobs that maybe a lack of experience doesn't take and give them set ways when they enter that position and allows them to flourish. I don't think this is the type of position. I think experience matters, and certainly the second candidate had more experience at all the things that we need to be looking at, in my estimation.
Okay. So now I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to ask the town administrator to enter into contract negotiations with David Evans for the Newbury Fire Chief position.
And I second that.
You'll second that. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Dan?
No.
Bill? Leslie?
No,
Jeff? Okay.
I'm gonna take it back.
You have further
I
discussion?
all I wanna say is, I observed the faces of the people that were out there and read body language, and that was also a persuasive way for me to make a decision.
Okay, well, we have this, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Hopefully we can get a contract. Are you guys happy with that? Are you happy with the process?
I look forward to working with Chief Evans.
That's great.
Hopefully we can get
Good to hear.
a
Super.
good contract.
Good to hear.
Okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to
Wait a
adjourn.
minute, I have a couple of updates really quick. We're not gonna hold a board meeting on our next time. We don't have any business before us. This was the most pressing business that we had. So there'll be no, I'm gonna cancel, we won't be, I'm not canceling, we're not gonna schedule a board meeting on the 24th. There is a DCC meeting on the 26th, and that is Leslie and Jeff, and that we're hosting here. We're hosting here, so
What time?
somebody has to.
6:30.
6:30.
Somebody, one of you two are gonna have to coordinate with Julie to make sure that the room's open.
It is.
Julie, we can run now.
Okay, so,
Room's open.
yeah, and we'll all be meeting in here, and one of, will chair it.
What was the date on that again?
The 26th.
26th.
And on that note, so our next meeting won't be until the second Tuesday in November.
I wish you had told me that when I said, let's move it a week. Because
That's
that,
why we weren't gonna move it.
well, that probably would have made a difference, but that's good to hear.
Okay, that's why I'm chair. All right,
But I just, meeting updates, I believe I have a meeting tomorrow night with the Essex veterans.
Yes.
But I don't, I've been, I just got back from
Yeah,
my
yeah.
meeting yesterday, so.
so there's no meeting updates right now, we'll do that at our next meeting.
Right, but I'm just saying, I don't know if I have one or not. I haven't seen an agenda for it.
Okay, so
but-
follow up with Julie, she can tell you when it's scheduled next. Just send
Do
me
you know
what
if I have one?
veterans?
I don't know the veterans, but I can look it up.
Yeah, she'll look it up.
Yeah, okay.
All right? Then I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.